The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the Marketing with Purpose segment of the Bliss Business Podcast, where we explore what it really takes for marketing leaders to create impact that goes beyond the numbers. I'm Tulio, and in each episode, we sit down with marketing experts to explore their leadership approach and strategies that drive performance and resonate with their audience. Together, we'll dive into what's working, what's not, and how purpose and empathy can transform the way brands connect with people. So let's get started. Today, I'm joined by Nelson Montini, brand manager at Top Rail Fence. Nelson is a franchise marketing leader with a proven track record of turning marketing into a true growth engine for franchise owners. At Top Rail Fence, he leads marketing strategy for a 200-plus territory franchise network, where he has built systems that align marketing strategy with business outcomes by bridging the gap between marketing and operations. His approach has helped drive rapid network growth, increased local marketing investment from under 5% to nearly 29% of revenue, while growing total marketing investment by nearly 600%. With additional franchise marketing experience at premium service brands and Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Nelson brings deep expertise in scaling brands through data-driven strategy and operational alignment. We're going to explore aligning marketing with business growth. And I'm excited to dive in to see how marketing leaders can create systems that deliver measurable results for both franchisees and the business as a whole. It's good to have you, Nelson. Before we dive in, I'd love to hear, why was aligning marketing with business growth the topic you chose to explore with us today? And why is that so important today, you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if you go into most organizations today, there's always a friction, or almost always a friction that you can feel. And that friction is marketing versus operations, or it's marketing versus finance. And that's really not fun to work through. It makes growing the business pretty difficult. And when you look at what the best marketing leaders out there can do, they're able to change one word in that statement. They're able to make the dynamic across the company marketing, instead of marketing versus, marketing with operations, marketing with finance, and really creating that cross-functional alignment that creates the growth that the business is looking for. And with Top Rail Fence, with a lot of the other brands I've had the opportunity to work with, that has been a huge part of what's driven success, is being able to really create that marketing with dynamic across the organization.
Now, let's face it, marketing leaders, CMOs, heads of marketing, they're often pulled between near-term campaigns, results, and long-term brand building. That's always this dance that needs to be balanced. Now, how do you ensure that your marketing strategy stays aligned with the company's growth goals? And where do you find the biggest friction points in making that happen? You mentioned some of it. Some of it is mindset. What else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to ask you a good question here. So imagine you're the marketing leader in the company and you have your marketing scorecard and you're a little bit off track. So there's a big red box staring you in the face on your computer screen. So what would you do in that scenario?
Well, the big question is, why is it there? And was the measurement right to begin with? I think the biggest challenge for marketing leaders is setting the right expectation and not just accept the push. Leadership will say, but this is what we need to achieve. Great, we can achieve that, but first we need to establish a baseline.
Right.
And in any business, whether you're a technology company or anything else, before you set out goals or metrics, you establish a baseline.
Yeah.
But in marketing, the expectation is that you get to the goal before even having a baseline. So that's a mindset problem. Yep. Well, if the thing is red, my big question is, why was the intended outcome assumption correct to begin with? And then that's a most basic diagnostic first. Was a baseline ever established? How long did that baseline take to establish? And there's so many other factors. Once you have that in place and you got a formula, if you're missing the mark, then there's other questions that come up.
Right.
in the industry, the change in direction of the consumer or the buyer. There's so many different factors to consider. That's why you have to constantly optimize. But in most cases, it's usually in most cases that I've seen, it's usually a misalignment in expectations.
Right.
And not accepting that marketing is an investment strategy, not a cost strategy. And so just like any investment, you ratchet up and down based on the outcomes, but you have to maintain a certain baseline for continuity and for compounding effects, which no one ever talks about. There is a compounding effect to marketing and establishing presence, establishing trust. These things take time. And when you turn it on and off, you start over, and then the compounding needs to start again. And so sometimes there's a lag in those decisions that could be avoided. Or sometimes I've seen even in wealth management, an entire year lag between actions taken this quarter and then a year later, the impact that has. So it's hard to correlate how the decision that was made last year impacted next year's results. So as a good CMO will do deep dive into the data to not only look for the anomalies, but look up the science behind it. And if the science is off, then it becomes a logical conversation, not an emotional one. And that's the trick. Yep. Often these become emotional conversations.
Right.
You can't make it an emotional conversation. It's a business conversation that needs to be looked at facts and data. So that's how I would handle it. Get it back to the data.
Yep. And that's a huge part of it. So in that scenario, I think a lot of marketers would do exactly what you said. Look at the data, figure out what it is. And all right, let's go try and make that number red, turn it green. So we go, say we're short on lead volume, we go roll out a campaign, we go optimize the ads, get with our marketing team, roll that out. 3 weeks later, we get into our team meeting and our number's green. But then you're sitting across from the table, the operations leader's there. He sitting across from you, he looks defeated. Their number's down, it's way in the red. And it becomes, well, I made the right marketing decision, but did I make the right business decision? And that's where sometimes a lot of that friction can come into play.
That's where the marketing decision can't be based on just metrics.
Right.
Metrics, because that's not tied to the business. When I speak about baseline, it's got to be tied to the business outcome. So we're not just looking at the ROAS, we're looking at the ROI.
Right.
That needs to be correlated. Both need to be correlated. If I'm hitting all my metrics, but there's no sales coming from that, then what's the point?
Yep.
I got 1 million people visiting the site. How many turned into opportunities? What's the point of getting these big metrics? And that's the biggest challenge in marketing, is that we've bought into the metrics, right? Because everybody's like, well, give me something to measure. How do I measure you? Well, these are the things you should measure me on. It's click through and all this other stuff, when it really should just be a business conversation.
Exactly that. Exactly that. And what I look at in that scenario is, if we made the marketing decision in a vacuum, maybe the operations team had 2 salespeople turnover and an install crew quit. And we just made a decision to bring in more leads because that's the number we were given to drive. So when I look at where the friction comes in, it's, how do we overcome that and be collaborative, focus on the business objective? And what we do in Top Rail Fence and other brands I've been a part of is try to look one step further downstream from marketing. If booking rate is not in line, well, let's figure that out together. Or if close rate's not in line, let's figure out why, so we can ensure that the marketing decision is ultimately the right one for the business, for the brand.
I love that, because now you're doing what a marketer is supposed to do, take ownership of the business outcome.
Yeah.
Sometimes the conversion doesn't happen because you got a salesperson that needs additional training. Even looking at the data, which one has higher close ratio than the other could tell a lot about the effectiveness of someone in the sales side. But the key, you mentioned the key is removing those silos, because otherwise you're just pointing fingers at each other, and that doesn't help.
Right.
But now, in an ideal world, we want to get all that alignment. But then sometimes high stakes situation emerges. There's a brand crisis, a market downturn, a new competitor comes in. So many different factors that are beyond our immediate control. So how do you maintain a sense of purpose and empathy? Because you want to be purposeful and want to have a approach that resonates in the clients, but sometimes you got to make some quick strategic decisions based on the outcomes. What's your process for handling that?
Yeah, and I faced this in a brand that I worked with before. Joined the brand, it was very new, and it turned out our website was shadow banned by Google. So no paid traffic, no organic traffic could go to the website. We had many new franchise locations. So that is a crisis when nothing we can do from a marketing standpoint works. And the most difficult thing in that scenario is it's really tempting to just, kind of lock yourself in a room, go all in on solving that. But you lose the visibility with your people, lose the visibility with your franchise owners. And when you lose visibility, even if you're in the background doing great work and solving the problem, you're not really being empathetic to your team, to your franchise owners. The assumptions that they come up with their own assumptions. They reach their own conclusions. And you can come out of that a few months later, have it fixed, but they've already made up their mind on what's going on. So what we did in this brand is we focused on 3 C's: clear, confident, communication. We got in front of our franchise owners every single week. We were very clear about what we were doing, what we knew, and what we didn't know. And the most important thing was communicating that with confidence. If an owner or a team member felt that we did not know what we were working towards, we could instantly lose the trust of the system, and that would make it extremely difficult to rebuild once it was fixed. So focusing on the communication while also doing the hard work in the background is how we can overcome a brand crisis scenario.
Nice. Now, you're a franchise, so you're often launching into new markets, entering new markets. What's been the most effective way to get that alignment in place? Aligning sales, product, operation, customer success teams. And you touched on this a little bit, but where does that alignment usually tend to break down? If someone's watching this, what should they look for that could cause that misalignment?
Yeah, from the start, and I take this from Cameron Harold, it's starting with the vivid vision. What is the exact goal, the exact picture of what you're looking for before you begin? Because if you start and give a team just a general objective, every single team's going to do something different. Product's going to roll out 2 new features. Marketing is going to create a campaign that doesn't include those 2 new features. Sales is going to have a whole different process. And that's because while we were aligned around the task, we weren't as aligned around the purpose, what the end goal ultimately was. So painting that vivid picture of what you're really going after, checking in with the teams as well throughout the process to make sure that we are rowing in that same direction is what I found to be the key to ensuring alignment through rollouts, through new markets opening and everything like that.
Nice. Let's talk a little bit about data, because being data driven, and sometimes the data and the insights either coming from the sales team or the operations team or even the customers themselves, sometimes they align, sometimes they don't. So maybe share with us a time when customer feedback and behavior data maybe shifted your campaign direction, where one thing said one thing, the other said something else. And what has that taught you about balancing being data-driven, analytics and intuition?
This is a great one. And recently we kicked off the year, record lead volume, record revenue numbers, record same-store sales growth. Everything looked great on paper. And as the business got busier, we track our scorecard every week with close rate, with review rating, things like that. And we were watching it where it's like, cool, top line's growing. This is fantastic. Then there was a little blip. Close rate maybe dropped a point this week, bounced back. And there was another blip and another blip. And then we started to see a 1-star review come in here and there. And it's a home service business. Some of that stuff happens, but we keep moving past it. And eventually it got to the point where those little dips became a trend. And we looked at the trend, and the one thing on our scorecard that was down was our close rate. So instinctually, it'd be, well, let's go give our sales team coaching, learn what we need to do in our sales process. Something's got to be up there. But when we started reading our 1-star reviews, we realized customer experience was maybe where it was falling off. And we dug into the data a little bit further and discovered something incredible. We had what could be coined as a close rate cliff, where the speed that we got to customers determined our odds of closing. If we got to customers faster, the close rate was double. So at one day, our close rate was about 20 points higher than at 4 days.
Mm.
And we started to hear from customers in reviews, non-responsiveness, taking too long, being slow. And the instinct would have been looking at the scorecard, go after our sales team, when in reality it was, how do we build a business that serves our customers faster and solve our customer experience? We have a window our guys can sell in. We're just not putting them there the majority of the time.
Wow. I mean, what an incredible lesson, right? Because automatically you could have assumed something's off on the sales side, but it was actually just responsiveness. And there's actually been tons of studies on this, how 70% of deals fail because of lack of follow through or responsiveness. Because you get a lead, right? And the assumption is, what people fail to remember is that person submitted that to probably 4 or 5 different companies.
Right.
So by the time you get to it, if it's 4 days later, somebody else has already jumped in. And if they really wanted to do business with you, they can't consciously do it because like these guys were so unresponsive. Like, what's it going to be like with them afterwards? So
right.
What a beautiful experience about tracking even like how quick you get back to customers, because there's something about that momentum. And and those reviews, if they tell you you're not responsive, that's like a deal killer.
Right.
Thanks for sharing that. That must have been tough to get to, but important. Now let's shift a little bit about talking about marketing as a predictable revenue engine. As you think about your current growth stage, what are the most important business outcomes marketing is expected to influence? And where is work still needed to operate like a predictable revenue engine? And what feels harder than it should in marketing right now?
Yep. So our goal is to maximize the franchise owner's bottom line of the business. End of the day, our whole team is aligned around maximizing profit. And what becomes kind of difficult is, how do we balance marketing and the marketing investment with the capacity the location ultimately has? This ties back to the last story we just shared. Is one of the most difficult things to move in a franchise system is franchise owners ultimately building and hiring teams. So what created a lot of that backlog, the delay in response, was having enough sales appointments on the calendar, but not enough people to serve them quickly. And from a marketing standpoint, we know it's predictable. The marketing investment is predictable in terms of what it produces by salesperson. But what happens is an owner wants to continue to grow even faster. They pour a few more dollars on. Busy feels good, but the time to get to customers goes, sorry, I can't speak today. The time to get to customers expands and expands and expands, and close rate drops and close rate drops and close rate drops. And they're mistaking busy for good, but it's ultimately hurting the bottom line of their business. So the biggest challenge that we have is balancing the marketing investment with the capacity that the location has. And sometimes it's hard from a marketing perspective. I want to keep driving lead volume into the business, but if they can't handle it, more volume does more net harm than good for the business.
Absolutely. Now let's shift a little bit about people in the marketing team. What's your approach to developing marketing talent, so that not only they hit performance goals, but stay engaged, stay inspired, stick around, especially the good performers. And based on your experience, either yourself as a leader or even having worked for some other leaders, where do most leaders struggle the most in retaining their top talent?
I think the title of the series answers this pretty well: marketing with purpose, and giving your team members purpose behind what they're doing. And I look at this and say there's a difference between a marketer and a marketing leader. A marketer is exceptional at the marketing tactic. They're really good at blogs, really good at SEO, really good at social. The marketing leader is able to translate all of those things and make it really impact the business and understand how to do that. So when I look at working with and developing people on marketing teams, it's how do we give their work the purpose and make sure that they understand how it really drives the business. Because in a leadership position, if you don't tie marketing to the business and make sure your team members don't, if they don't know that, you've set an artificially low ceiling on their career. So giving them the purpose, the ability to understand it, how it drives the business, helps them accelerate their career faster. And on your team, you get even better ideas because they're all about moving the business. Their work now has purpose. They can track it on the scorecard, and it becomes a whole lot more fulfilling by giving it that purpose.
I love it. And I want to address CEOs, especially growth stage company CEOs, very quickly on this. When you hire a CMO or a marketing leader, don't look for everything. Often what happens is you want an executive with good presence who can develop the people, but you also want them to be a practitioner. And it's difficult to find both. And if you find a CMO that's a practitioner, they will often not provide the executive leadership. So if you can't afford to have both, get a fractional CMO. But you have to distinguish between the two. One is developing people, like you just mentioned, and the other one is developing the market. They're not the same role. So I just want, that's a common problem that happens a lot, where you have job postings for a CMO and it reads like a marketing manager with an overglorified title. That's not what a good CMO or a good marketing leader does. They develop people. They get the people to do the best work. If you can't afford one, get a fractional one. Okay, so final question here, because we are talking about marketing with purpose and the impact that has and the role empathy plays in marketing, which is often overlooked, especially in a world where there's so much noise. How do purpose and empathy shape the way you approach marketing today? And maybe can you share a personal story where your work had a meaningful impact on either a customer or even an employee?
Yeah, and I'm fortunate enough to be in franchising, which is very people driven. So being empathetic, understanding what our franchise owners are going through, what they've put on the line to make this happen is a big part of what I do every day. Because the franchise owners I work with, a lot of them have put everything on the line. Retirement, savings, everything like it. This is it. So when I serve franchise owners, we have to be respectful of that investment that they're making and make sure that we're helping them reach their goal. So one of my favorite examples of this, there was an owner in another franchise I worked with a few years ago and really wanted to be aggressive from a marketing standpoint. It was, I'm not going to let my business fail due to lack of marketing investment. So kept an eye on it. And they are investing pretty aggressively. Calendar was full. They felt really busy, but there was a problem. We were 60 days in. They had spent $15,000 on marketing and had closed a total of $6,000 of work. So from a marketing standpoint, it's really hard because we're graded on startup performance and the lead volume that they have, but we're looking at it saying this person's burning cash, they're under pressure. What can we do? It's my scorecard's based on lead volume. And ultimately we made the decision to keep them in business. We're going to decrease marketing investment, really lean into the sales process, set them up to do well. And it took 12 weeks to do that. Their close rate went from 4% to 9% to 12% week over week over week. And eventually they got up to the 30% benchmark we had. We ratcheted up marketing spend again, and they started to put together $120,000, $150,000 months back to back to back to back. And that really ultimately saved that business. So that's a really rewarding story from franchising and how we use marketing and really all the things that we talked about today to make the best business decision. And it's seeing it change someone's life for the better is one of the most rewarding parts.
That is beautiful because that's not just a business decision. That's a human meeting the needs of a human being and being empathetically aware of what is at stake for that individual who, like you said, might have invested their life savings. And caring for that requires being very human, dare I say, even having love for people, which is what this show is about. Bliss, build love into scalable systems. So I love that story. And I'm sure it's going to pay off big dividends as you guys continue to grow. Nelson, thank you for joining us on the Marketing with Purpose series of the Bliss Business Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
I hope today's conversation sparked some new ideas for how you can build a stronger connection in your market across teams and create marketing strategies that are not only measurable, but more aligned, collaborative, and human. If you found value in this discussion, please like, subscribe, add a comment, and share it to keep the conversation going. And remember, great marketing doesn't just perform and sell. It connects and serves. See you next time.